everyone. Welcome back to another episode on the What Did He Mean by That podcast. I'm here today with Chris DiCola, Pastor Kip, and Robby McKinney. And I am Chris Heimerle. Chris and Ashley Callie are not able to join us today. They have been in Florida enjoying the nice weather that Florida brings while we have been enduring these ice storms and snowstorms. But this past weekend, Pastor Kip preached a message on the idea of taking your next step with the Lord. Let's jump into today's conversation. Hey, Kip, we're glad to have you on here.
That's great to be on. Thanks for having me.
So this weekend you spoke on Acts chapter 8. What does that scripture mean to you?
Well, so it's no surprise. I spent a lot of time in the baptismal.
Yeah, you're our baptism pastor.
Yeah, I don't know that we have that official designation, and any of the pastors can do baptisms, public service announcement. But no, it's a joy to be back there. So when Pastor Chris said, we're going to be preaching and we're going to be doing a call for people to take their next step, that passage immediately grabbed me just because of how many people haven't been baptized and how many people think they just have all these thoughts in their minds of what they need to do to get baptized before they're ready to be baptized. And I thought, man, that eunuch, once he understood, it's like there's all these things that they put in the way to keep him from taking their next step is mental.
Yeah, and I think that's a good message this is the end of the series, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And through this whole series, we're talking about what is your next step? How can you be following the Lord? And just what is your next step to do that? Is it time in church? Chris gave that challenge. Is it giving? Is it baptism? And we had a couple opportunities in the lobby for that. But as I'm thinking, right, I think it might be good for us to share what our next steps are with the Lord. So Chris, DiCola, what do you think yours is?
So for me, definitely giving was a big one. I was really struggling. I really wrestle with that, and I'm not a very generous person. So this year, stepping into it, I was trying to challenge myself in the sense of that, and also just being consistent and just spending time in the Word every day. So those are my big ones for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so being in the Word hasn't been a problem. I think for me, one of the things I needed to do was be even more intentional with relationships, more intentional to move from, this ministry obligation to just really engaging and seeing people and investing in those relationships. So that's the big one for me this year, is to be intentional that way.
Mm. It's been cool to see all the moments of different types of ministry the Lord's been providing for me lately, and choosing to be obedient in that, not just being comfortable where I am, but choosing to stretch myself and obey to the opportunities that the Lord presents to me, and being willing to stretch myself.
Yeah, mine is kind of bringing people along on the stuff I normally am doing. So I probably have 3 or 4 guys that are going through the Bible this year with me together. So we're doing a reading plan, and it's just like, okay, how do I get people involved in kind of the stuff I'm already doing and help train them up like that? So that's some of my
discipleship. That's a big deal. With our pastoral residency too, it's like we've got guys like Brian and Robby and Chris, and it's like you said, don't get comfortable with the things that you're comfortable with. It's like you could go off and do the tasks or the things that you're good with, but it's like, now I'm like, hey, I want to bring Chris to a faith visit, or Robby to be a part of a funeral, or Brian to be a part of some premarital counseling for a newlyweds or newly engaged couple. So that, I think, requires intentionality too, because you can just do the things that you're good at.
So as we end the series, I kind of want to think through like those tables we had in the lobby and with what you're preaching, how it relates to those. So the first one was membership and baptism, and with that, like, I guess, like, why should I be baptized?
Yeah, well, I think I said it in the service this weekend, and I think that was the moment for the eunuch. There was a desire. He was seeking, right? He went to Jerusalem to worship, couldn't go into worship. He would have been excluded because of his condition as a eunuch. He was reading the text, didn't know what it meant or who it was about, so there was this seeking. And then once he understood the brokenness of his own sin and what God had done, and with Christ dying on the cross for him, he was driven and motivated with the gospel out of love. And so I think, people, why would people want to get baptized? Well, they would understand how much they're loved, and then Jesus commands us to do it. We're not saved by that act, but when you understand how much you're loved, you want to respond in obedience as an expression of your love. Thank you for loving me.
Yeah, and this weekend at 11 a.m. I got to baptize Toby.
So cool.
And
That was awesome.
And Toby has been a believer for about 2 years, and for the last year, I think we've been having a conversation about baptism, and for him, it's been a journey, and he's okay with me sharing this. It just, he's like, why should I do it? Like, I'm a believer. I don't understand it, and it's cool to say, like, as the Ethiopian was like, let me get baptized right now, and Toby's story is more of like, why? What am I doing?
Yeah.
And but it was cool to, on next steps, that has been his next step for a while, and we gotta witness that together.
Well, and I think you hit something, Chris, because not everybody's like the eunuch. They're like, what's to stop me right now? And they maybe the devil's telling them lies. Maybe they think they've got to understand more, and it's not something you want to just take lightly. But understanding that it's not a means of salvation, but it's like your parent tells you to pick up your room. I don't want to pick up my room. If you don't pick up your room, you're losing your phone. Well, now you do that out of fear. It's like, I don't want to lose something. But when you know how hard your parents work and they prepare meals and they do all these things for you, and you're like, man, my parents love me so much. They've asked me to do this. I should just do this out of love. And I think that's what happens when we obey Christ and get baptized. But a lot of people have a lot of different reasons that they wrestle with that. And it's when they do finally profess their faith, I'm telling you, every time there's somebody in the sanctuary that'll come on out, I need to talk to you. I've been waiting, and I saw this one, and God uses it. God will use those moments of obedience to draw more people to himself. And it was so cool, Toby's. And it was the right time. That was the divine appointment that he did it that day, because there were people in the room that needed to see it and witness it.
Yeah.
So a big thing you talked about in your message was this thing of divine appointments. You mentioned that there have been multiple times in your life where you had divine appointments from God. How do you know when those appointments are happening in our own lives?
Yeah, well, I probably, as I've been walking with the Lord, I realized there have been many more in my life that I didn't even realize it was God, and you start to reflect on it. I think probably the easiest way is, and I shared that Friday, I wasn't anticipating anything. I wanted to get a cup of coffee, and then there was a person that the Lord had presented, that gentleman, Mark, and that was a divine appointment. I think as you continue in your relationship with the Lord and you continue to see how God works, you are more alert to seeing what God's doing around you, and don't realize it could be somebody in a grocery store you could run into. It could be somebody, you're at the hardware store doing something. It could be the blueberry crumble at Stewart's, somebody that God puts in front of you, and all of a sudden you're like, okay. You start a conversation, ask a question.
Well, it's not really a question, but a lot of times, in my opinion, when you're experiencing yourself in a divine appointment, a lot of times you don't know you're actually in it until you're through it. I think for me, one of my biggest realizations in my personal life, and even how I got to Northside, was I was working for Chris Heimerle's brother, and I was like, Lord, what are my next steps? And knowing that at the end of it, my job, because they were moving away, was that I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what my next steps were, but little did I know that I would take a trip out here in April, and then 2 months later would be interviewing here just because of the connections the Lord had put me in. And it's like, you don't even realize what you're in until you're through it a lot of the times. But
so if we had interviewed you in let's say, February, would you have come?
Honestly, no, I wouldn't have. The Lord was really working on
Well, that leads me to my next question, which is, what happens when we have these divine appointments and we ignore them or we miss them? We choose not to be a part of them. Does that mean that the eunuchs remain lost and confused, or what happens in that case?
I think, well, okay, so a couple different thoughts I have here for like me, right? I'm pretty like task oriented. So when I'm in a grocery store, it's like I'm going in there, grabbing my stuff and leaving. Like, and Kip's more relational like that. Like he's just gifted differently in that. So, but in Chris DiCola, your example, it's just like the Lord intertwines and weaves everything in there. That I think you got to rest on the Lord's sovereignty in there. That the Lord gifts you and gives you grace to use you. Right, but the Lord's going to accomplish what He wants to accomplish.
Exactly.
So I was going to share. What happens is when you miss out on having that conversation, or you miss out on maybe that prompting or nudging, you're like, no, and then you learn later something had happened or something that they were going through, and you miss out on the joy of being a part of that or being able to walk alongside somebody in that moment. But whether you do it or not, the Lord is going to, back to your point, Chris, He's going to accomplish His purposes.
Yeah.
We get to experience and grow in our faith and our understanding with God when we are in tune to those moments. And I think those things will just strengthen you immeasurably as you walk with the Lord.
That's great.
Just so when you miss it, when a lot of times I feel like it's a prompting, you're like, what's a prompting? I don't even really know how to explain it, but you just feel it. Like, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to go talk to this person. And one of the coolest stories I heard from one of my youth pastors was he felt that he was prompted to go talk to somebody. We were at a grocery store together and he didn't. But just because he didn't, somebody else went and shared the gospel with that person, and that person had gotten saved. But it was really cool just seeing it all transpire, where it was like he ignored it, and somebody else went and accomplished the Lord's will for that person's life, and went and shared the gospel, and they got saved, which I think is cool. But He's going to accomplish His will, as you said. Like, it doesn't have to be you. We're just the tool that He gets to use.
Not all those divine appointments mean you're having gospel conversations either. But you're like my friend Mark. I could tell he was dealing with some things, and he knew who I was. I didn't know who he was. I got to know him. I got to hear his journey. And in fact, what was really cool is, he's a new believer, and he's new in his walk with the Lord. And it's like, what's your next step? Is what I'm thinking. I'm like, you need to be at church this weekend. And he was there. I saw him. But not every conversation's a gospel conversation. No. It's just you're blessed from having been sensitive to the Lord's prompting. You get to walk with somebody.
And I know in my own life, there's been times where it's like I felt that prompting. Like looking back, like in the moment, I didn't know what it was, but looking back at it, I'm like, why didn't I do that?
Yeah.
And it's regret I have now of like, what would the Lord have done if I had gone through with that? It's not that His will isn't done in the end, but I miss out on the blessing of being a part of it. And I think that that's part of my journey too, right? Like I there was a moment where I was in New York City and I felt a prompting to talk with people, and I didn't. I just was nervous and scared. And I remember on the drive home to upstate New York after being in the city, I was like, God, next time I'm in the city, I'm going to give it everything I have. And I did this in a human way, knowing that I was going to be back later in the spring. Little did I know that I was going to be back the next week, literally a week from that day, in the same exact spot where I felt the prompting, in a position where I was told I had to be sharing the gospel with people. And I was like, this is not the deal I thought I was making with you, God. What is this? And it was a cool moment of like, I got to see that blessing fulfilled, and I didn't have to wait 5 months. I got to only have to wait a week.
Sweet.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you said that you had regret, and I think those are the things that spurn you into more action in the future. Like, man, I don't want to miss that. I don't want to miss it. I don't want to miss being a part of what you might have. And Robby, it's not New York City, right? It could be somebody who walks through the halls here at church, and it's like, just be ready and watch out what God does through that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Another way of taking your next step is through community and people. Pastor Chris taught a message a couple weeks ago on like being church heard, and but there's ways, and one of the tables is the next step could be involved as joining a group or joining a ministry. Chris, you run a ministry. What are some of the things that, like, the importance of being in a ministry like that in a community?
The importance of being in a ministry,
And like with a group of people.
Okay, with a group of people. Well, I think it's really cool because you start to build like a community with those people. There's something about serving alongside people that have the same goals, knowing that. So I'm the student director here, so I work with our youth. But in knowing that each one of our goals is to see each kid take their next step, it's really cool to serve alongside those people because it's not just that you get to pour into the ministry ministry pours into you too. It works both ways. It's not you're just giving. It works simultaneously in a way. It's the word I guess I'm looking for. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Well, I think that's a great example. And you saw it in Acts 7 going into 8. You've got this community of like-minded people who are the fellowship of the church and persecution. And you go through hard things together, too. You grow together and you have success together and you learn from one another. So a community is really important. It's a big deal. You don't want to be on an island.
No.
And I think we live in a culture that we get isolated so much.
Yeah.
We need fellowship.
It's really easy in today's day and age just to coast through it. Like I just show up to church and I do this because I'm supposed to. But we're called to serve at the end of the day, and that's obedience. We are called to serve somewhere, and we all have different gifts, and it's important for us to use our gifts in the way the Lord has.
That's good.
Missions.
Yeah.
Some are going to the outer regions of the world. That was a popular table.
Yeah.
A lot of mission opportunities.
And missions, like, I think it's like an intriguing part, right?
Yeah.
And have all of you guys been on a missions trip?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think we would all agree that's just such a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
Kip, your whole testimony starts over there, right?
Yeah. We took the first step of getting rid of cable. We were so broken. We went to the DR with Joe and on a healthcare mission. And then little did I know that this was just another one of those moments where you said yes and you were obedient to God and you followed his prompting. And next thing you know, it's like, I think I'm supposed to leave this healthcare career, go full-time ministry. And it doesn't make sense by the world standards.
Yeah.
That was powerful.
And one of the last tables I want to kind of stress and probably end with is we had that table with a bunch of books on it, and it had the first 2 chapters of the book of Acts. And I was challenged at a conference a couple months ago that this is a great tool to read the Bible with someone. Yeah. And that's kind of just been my strategy of doing that with some of the young adults in our church that, hey, let's just read the Bible together and learn from it together and grow in our faith together. But I think that's a really good tool for families to do around the dinner table, or you to find a friend or a family member or someone at the church and say, hey, let's just read the Bible together. Yeah. I think that's something that, at least growing up, like I didn't do often or common. That I started a couple months ago doing it with some guys in this church, and I think it's been super beneficial and seeing people grow and really dissecting the word together.
Yeah. There's and we got a lot of those tools. I highly recommend, even for families. It's a great way. It guides you through it, right? Those ACT books that we have out there, kind of fill in the blank, talk through, and prompt you. And it's a great devotion for a family, a great one-on-one with somebody. Maybe you have somebody that isn't in church, but they might be open to it. Or even for yourself, I think it's really powerful to spend time studying and looking at that in a different perspective than just reading, right?
Yeah.
Putting a little more focus on it. So it's really good. We grow in our understanding with the Lord. When you find whatever your gifting is, get plugged in. Philip's gifting was he saw people, he was full of the Spirit, he knew the Word. For some of us, maybe it's people, maybe it's not people, maybe they're like you, Chris, they're task-oriented. Find a way that you can use that gift in the church and serve, because God will present those opportunities. Chris, creating community for our kids who are just, a lot of them have a tendency to live in TikTok and YouTube, and they could just be content on pixelated virtual environment. And they need to be out in community. And that's, you've got one of the biggest youth groups in the area. And you're very intentional that you do nothing with screens for these kids. So there's so many ways to get plugged in. Figure out what your gift is, and the church will be better because of you. So, Robby, there's just so many ways to get plugged in. Prayer, missions, membership, baptism, the different life groups, so many ways. We'd love to see you use your gifting to make this church more vibrant, and you'll grow in your walk with the Lord through that. It's huge.
Thanks for joining us for the What Did He Mean by That podcast. As Pastor Kip shared, we have each been blessed with specific gifts and abilities that can be used to serve the church. If you would like to take your next steps in serving the Lord, we encourage you to get connected here at Northside. You can find different ministries or places to serve at the Next Step table. If you're looking for community, we have multiple life groups meeting each week. Don't wait for tomorrow to get connected here at Northside. Take your next steps today.